Well, welcome everyone to today's webinar. The title of our webinar today is The Real Cost of Broken Integrations. So for purposes of this call, your audio and video have been disabled. However, we'd love to hear from you. Please use the Q&A feature to provide any comments or questions during the call, and we'll respond appropriately. So today we're going to talk about how software integration plays a crucial role for your organization's software landscape. If you're considering software integration for your organization, today's webinar will explore how broken integrations can damage your organization's productivity, cause revenue loss, lower data quality, increase maintenance costs, and we're also going to talk about how to avoid those pitfalls and how you can avoid or resolve those issues. My name is Matt Peterson. I'm a relationship director with MapleLMS. MapleLMS has a fantastic integration team, and MapleLMS also has an out-of-the-box integration with Salesforce, Fontiva, Zoom, Microsoft Teams, and GoToMeeting. So we do have some experience with integrations, and the team is continuously integrating with CRMs, HRMs, AMS, and other systems as well. Joining me on today's call is speaker Robert Haas. He's founder and data evangelist of Sphere Data Solutions Group. Welcome, Robert.
Thank you, Matt. Very excited to be here today. Just a little bit about my background. I most recently was the Chief Technology Officer for PCMA, an association in the business event space. But have spent my career in data and technology and increasingly in the marketing technology arena, and this is actually a topic that's very near and dear to my heart, particularly with the changes that COVID presented in forcing people more into a digital environment, and really putting an emphasis on what does the platform integration mean for a customer experience and the growth of an organization.
Great. Would you like to provide some opening comments?
Yeah. To start, when we think about integrations and platforms, so often the idea of roles within an organization, it defaults back to the technology team. And we think about in the bigger picture of everyone that actually is involved with a platform and the customer experience. It actually extends well beyond the technology team. And in that initial slide that quoted Jeff Bezos for the customer experience, I'm a genuine believer that is the source of everything that we have to be driving towards. And this quote, or this percentage at the top of this slide, the 64% of people think customer experience is more important than price in their choice of brand. That is 100% true, and that's why premium brands continue to exist. That it's because it makes people's lives easy. And when we think about the world we live in, there really are, there's two. There's the one that there's customer loyalty, and are we serving our customer base or member base in the best possible way? Because if we don't, it is statistically true that a dissatisfied person will tell between 9 and 15 people of a bad experience, which there's nothing more crippling to an organization's growth than that. On the flip end, you look at your internal customers or your team of talented staff, and in particularly in a world that people are resigning and people are rethinking their workplace environment, having a system that may have a broken integration is going to put a lot of stress on an internal team and staff that you probably want to retain. And so, that has an inherent risk to the business. And then the third just is, when you deal with poor integrations, it's kind of, I look at is kind of that way of you've got a house that's got poor insulation. you're gonna spend a lot more on heating and cooling that you need to, because the efficiency is lost. Same kind of analogy with technology. If you've got a broken integration, you're going to be spending a whole lot of people hours in your technology budget, working to fix it. And so, that inherent risk of going over budget is significant, to not being able to focus on other areas of the business that have potential growth as well. That may be actually the bigger risk to the business. So, the use case here that we're speaking about, and that is, what is the real cost of a broken integration? It's not a simple answer, other than we know that it's going to impact the growth of the organization.
Great, that's a great overview of kind of what the cost of a broken integration is like. How do you know that you have a broken integration, and what does a broken integration look like?
So, we kind of building on the last slide, it really does, touch 5 key areas. One is, the first and the most obvious is typically when we look at the front line, the individuals that are going to be fielding calls, because of something that's not working right. And we'll get into some more of those specifics in a minute. But inherently, the customer service team, and anyone that may have a public profile presented on the website and or LinkedIn, they will be contacted. They'll be notified, because someone's not going to be able to do something they want to in the moment. That really also leads to reporting, whether it's at the department level, whether it's at the enterprise level. But reporting is either going to be delayed, because it means that someone might be having to manually key things in. It may be something that data is not actually there, which leads to inaccuracy. But reporting is going to be impacted across the organization. That leads to frustration within an organization, and particularly with the team. And unfortunately, frustration often, if perpetuated enough, leads to loss in confidence. And again, while integrations is not a technology team only environment, quite often you see, because the integration is related directly to the technology, you see a loss in confidence in that team, which definitely hurts morale, which leads to missing deadlines and diverting resources to other projects that may be related to top line growth or organizational efficiency, which ultimately all these things add up to point number 5, which is the organization is losing revenue. And whether it's revenue that you're not recognizing in the moment because someone couldn't effectively sign up or renew for a particular product or service, it's most certainly leading back to a bad customer experience. People tend to tell 9 to 15 people. That is going to have rippling long-term effects across the organization and with the customer base.
And then what are some indicators that you might have a broken integration on your hands?
So, these are what we're going to just say 8 very common ones. One is someone can't access the system because their password's not working. And then when they forgot password, it might not recognize them because the information might not be in there correctly because they're in there multiple times. Not being able to have real-time visibility to what people are consuming. That again leads back to the one that's in the second column, reports and dashboards. But they work hand in hand, because if there's not real-time visibility in the system, the reporting is broken. You don't have the lead indicators that you need that's going to help drive customer experience, and you're not going to lag indicators that indicate whether you're meeting your internal goals. And that could be financial, that could be customer service. It could be related to a number of things. Cross-platform data visibility. The easy example there is someone who completed the course, they're expecting to see their continuing education credit in their profile, and it never made it over, which means that, again, back to the customer service, they're going to have to reach out, take their time, be very frustrated, which then leads to the customer service having to do probably 30 minutes of research and do a manual data entry into the system. And ultimately, you're probably in an environment that all these broken integrations are occurring for could be in multiple reasons, but there's probably a common factor of the system has been customized throughout the years. And when I say customized, working outside of the standard system processes, which ultimately leads to the system not being able to be upgraded in a timely fashion or in a cost-effective or operationally efficient manner either. And that really is a huge red flag there, because that's going to lead to a lot of future pains as systems continue to grow. The organization can't grow with it, and when you get 3-4 versions ahead, it leads to some pretty serious fractures within the platform.
I think when we talk about taking on a project like this, it's important to be prepared. So what kinds of things should an organization consider before taking on any software integrations?
So let's think about this in a couple of stages. And before we get into the pre-integration checklist, the thing that I just want to point out here are the stakeholders within an organization. Again, not thinking that this is a technology team task. This is actually an everyone task, because if we think about a platform, and maybe the technology team is the core, the hub that touches everyone else, we have to think about is every platform, whether it's your LMS, whether it's your community platform, your CRM, your marketing automation, it's all integrated into the organization. And if we think about some more legacy business models, organizations cannot live in a silo. They can't, how the membership team works versus the marketing team versus the events team versus finance. They all have to communicate because the workflow is real, and customers just don't come to you for one thing anymore. And so before anything starts, identify the team that's going to be working on this integration, usually a key stakeholder representative from each area of the business, and they have to begin to bring their experience to the table. And that's pain points. It's identifying what the user experience should be, what the workflow should be, and how should that ideally integrate from entry into the organization to completion. What does that look like? So the pre-integration checklist, and we're going to say this is prior to the discovery process itself. The pre-integration checklist, it kind of goes, and we're going to go in a flow of starting with the data models. What are the key outcomes that we want to achieve? One outcome is that we want to utilize a platform such as the LMS for the ability to upgrade to other products or services. Or maybe it's where you're within an organization that a non-member can access the LMS through purchasing a specific course or product, but the goal is to drive them to membership. So thinking about what are the outcomes that we want, even before anything starts, how do we want to use the data? That leads into what type of data do we need? Where does it need to be mapped? I'd be willing to bet that in any organization that you've joined, there's probably about 10 times too many data fields within the existing systems. And it's usually the result of someone saying, I have an idea of how we can report on something. They float it. Someone says, well, we don't have that data point. Don't worry, we'll just add that field. And next thing you know, you've got a lot more data than you need. Which then again leads into how are we authenticating users? Are they able to use SSO in an effective manner to go from platform to platform? What is the data that we're exposing via their profile, which is exposing to the community versus what should not be? How does the data sync And this is a really important one, and this flows into the API workflow as well. But if we think about, just using the LMS as an example, someone's engaging in a specific piece of content, in understanding and being able to write back what that piece of content, topic structure, category that they're engaging with. Let's apply that to a logic that says, hey, if Rob Haas is consuming content about around a topic of technology integrations, if that's the category, and we know there's a bunch of topic structures below that, we're gonna engage with him via our marketing automation engine for all the related topics that he hasn't yet engaged with. And we're going to want that data synchronization and a clean API to be able to send that information clear to that individual to keep them engaged, which then naturally ties into reports and dashboards. Are the actions that we're taking effective? Can we see that the customer interactions, they're effective? Are people staying engaged? If we see that the average time within an LMS is 20 minutes, what can we do to make it 25 minutes? What can we do to bring them back more often? That's only accomplished through understanding how the data is flowing, and then creating effective tools to analyze it, and then most importantly, creating action upon that data. And then, a sin of every organization is data cleansing. Just putting data in a system and thinking that it can sit there and that it'll be great on its own. The typical statistic is that data goes bad at a rate of 1% to 3% per month, which means that if you do nothing over a period of time, you could be eliminating a significant amount of potential from your system. And so what does that mean? It means that if someone's constantly engaging, they're good. Always great to throw up maybe a pop-up that says, hey, is this still your information? Is it still accurate? Is this how we get a hold of you? Versus if someone has stopped engaging, there's probably a reason. And data cleansing is usually a very real reason why that happens. So that was pre-discovery. You've gone through this process. We've identified, we've identified the euphoric state of perfection within the user experience and what that looks like. It is time to get into the integration. And really, there's some key steps within every integration. And you might be looking at this screen and saying, holy moly, this is a lot. But it's really not. It's manageable. And the best part is it really flows together. And so when we look at just step number one, define integration stakeholders from both the systems and your team. We've talked about that in terms of who are the key people internally that are going to be able to weigh in from not only an internal process standpoint to understanding the user experience to closing it out. And those are the same individuals that are going to come and say, hey, listen, from my perspective, from the events perspective, from the membership perspective, from the learning perspective, this is how the user is going to use our platform. And this is the standard process, and this is what we want to achieve. And as you go through and we look at it, and you can create a very simple workflow. It's a really healthy exercise, even if you're not going through an upgrade. It's a very healthy exercise to say, this is the entry point into the organization from the different department perspectives, because people may be coming to you for education. They may come to you first from the perspective that they want to attend your event. They may be coming to you because they heard a membership's great. So thinking about what the integration or the start point in the organization, and then mapping that out. And again, on the previous slide, we talked about the data model. If somebody starts with a membership, what is the ideal path to get them in, to get them exposed to more content, to get them exposed to our products and services, and from wanting to get everybody in, wanting to get everyone into a similar map that we can look at, we can understand it, we can identify, are we encountering customized processes that are going to later cause issues? And then really creating that flow that defines key objectives by department, and then key outcomes. And as we do that, you kind of enter that stage of okay, now once we've identified that, what other systems, if we're solely focused on LMS, what other systems do we need to connect with? You know, does it need to connect directly with the marketing automation system? Does it need to connect directly with a community platform? Because if what you're learning, we want to be able to serve up recommended conversations, the answer is probably yes. What you know, the CRM is usually the obvious one because you're writing back system records. The registration, any registration platform, any events platform, you know, it's particularly events platform. If you think about what people are used to learning when they get into the events platform, can you leverage that information to be able to serve up more personalized content within a hybrid environment? And then that really goes into the flow of that data back and forth. Is this a standard integration? Is this an integration that we have to build? But what data needs to go over, and how can we effectively do that? And then you kind of move into that testing stage. And this is a really critical part. This is going to make or break in integration. And from a timing standpoint, you have to think about, okay, if we're gonna workflow this from beginning to end, a really critical part is do not allow user acceptance training and testing to begin with 1 week left in the whole process, because this is going to be a mission critical, because through this testing process, which ultimately leads into the training, you will find things that don't go right. You're going to need to involve that entire stakeholder team. You're going to have to hand over a set of standard procedures that everyone has to follow from their vantage point. And if something goes wrong, it's kind of that pause, that moment in time, go back to the source, identify what it is, and then kind of rinse and repeat. Because anytime you make a change in the system, going back to the beginning to be able to test those processes until you get to the point that everyone made it through, all the expected outcomes were achieved, and everyone is happy with the testing. You know, that then leads into what I think is the next most critical step, and something that also should not be shortcutted, but that's training the team on how to use the platform. That's making sure that everyone understands these are your standard operating procedures. This speaks to governance. This speaks to making sure that there are not any rogue people adding in data fields because they didn't like how something was reported. This goes to exactly how is data entered into the system. You know, this goes to if something did not go well in the system, how is this documented? How does it flow to the appropriate people to be able to address it? Start to finish, training the team is going to lead to system maintenance, which means that the systems won't break easily over time, to ultimately the best customer experience. And then once you feel comfortable with that, once you know that they have tested to no end on actual live data that's in the system, the team has been trained and everyone is very comfortable, you pick that deployment date to go to production, and then you hunker down and hope for the best.
While we're on this slide, we got a question from Barbara in the audience, and you had talked about 1 week probably isn't enough to do testing, but her question just focused more on this entire timeline of this. How long should people expect an integration to take?
You know, it really depends on a couple of different factors. One is how many systems are we integrating into? Is it, you know, the data that we're bringing in, how complex is the data? The data that we're bringing in, is it really dirty data? Does it need to go through a lot of manual integration or manual cleansing processes? And I think we cover this in a slide, but, you know, systems work as good as the data in the system allows it to. And so, spending that pre-integration, going through that checklist and the pre-integration and making sure that everything is very well thought out, it leads to the overall timeline. That said, and Matt, I don't want to speak for you. This might be a better question to throw back at you, but I'm sure you guys can probably do integrations as quickly as 6 weeks. And I'm sure depending on the complexity of them, it could go 4 to 6 months.
Yeah, absolutely. We usually estimate 8 to 10 weeks for an integration, but yeah, anything can kind of slow down that process, or if everything goes smooth, it can certainly speed up the process too. So hopefully that answers your question, Barbara. So let's move on to after you integrate. We went through all the integration steps, the preparation. After the integration, what are some additional items to consider, and are there any pitfalls that we should avoid to ensure a smooth integration?
Yeah, and there's a few, and I think really what I think, if we look at the slide, and these are eight key things. I think first and foremost, communication, making sure that number one, the lines of communication are open. Whether that's checking the system and error logs to see something that the front line might not be seeing, down to just continuously monitoring the health of the system through smart, through a good platform. And I'll note that if your platform doesn't have these types of quote unquote health diagnostic checking platforms, you got to ask the question, how are we going to be able to identify this? I spoke to this briefly, but having that ability for the front line to communicate immediately when they see something, to developing great SOPs, and that's not only in the form of written but quick user videos, and that's both on the customer side and the internal team side, because a lot can be resolved very quickly just through either a simple chat bot, but a great library of how-tos, really consumable, 30 seconds to 90 seconds how-to, and then no platform is static, so there's always going to be updates. Make sure you stay on top of those updates, because those updates usually relate to some sort of security flaw that is critical to either unwanted entry, to payments, to logging the right information, which then rolls right into the continuous testing, making sure that you do not skip on that UAT experience, and that the key stakeholders from end to end of the organization go through those standard processes every single time, and that's maintaining a great sandbox that allows you to maintain these updates and testing, while keeping the production environment clean and not making changes to production while things are while live users are in it. And then lastly, it always, particularly in the beginning, look at the dashboards, look at the reports, and then do your logic test. Does it make sense? Tying it back to raw data. Just making sure that the logic is built in that in a very short time, and you'll know very quickly if something's not right, but validation is always your best friend.
One thing, we have another question from the audience from Rob about how to handle updates. And since we're on the screen and we talked about updates, but upgrades and updates to software could impact existing integrations, right? What things to kind of watch out for if your software is being upgraded?
It does, and so there's a couple of things that you really want to be aware of. One, in an existing platform, if you did customize a process, though that tends to be where things break down when you did update it, because typically when you customize something, it's written for the environment in which you are in. And so when you go through an upgrade, if you think about a workflow that may have been a customer communication out, maybe a simple one is if someone purchased something, you wanted the receipt to look to a certain way. So there is a custom process of how that receipt's generated, and then the document flows back out to the customer. If that was customized in the new system, there could be field changes, there could be process changes that don't necessarily speak in the one-to-one environment. Those are some of the major reasons why you always want to try to avoid and limit any sort of customizations. So that's kind of an outbound in type of update. Updates within the platform itself often happens, and whether it's you're looking at a big system like Salesforce or Microsoft Dynamics, how does that then impact some of your other systems? And let's just, if you're thinking about an LMS and an SSO, making sure that you look at the notes for that upgrade and see where this is mainly impacting. Because sometimes, as platforms upgrade, it could have the potential to break a single sign-on opportunity. It could have the potential that if it's transaction-based, a field may have changed. So that could really impact the financial reporting. It happens on both sides. So thinking about that, oh, my LMS or my community platform hasn't upgraded, I'm good. That's not always the way, not only is always the scenario you just want to look at. Look at your AMS or look at your main system of record, and making sure that you're considering that and how that goes into the flow as well.
Hopefully you can catch any of those in a testing environment if you're going through an upgrade, right?
Absolutely.
Hopefully,
yeah.
Rob had another question, and I think this is a good segue. He asked, should you involve vendors in your integration? And I know from our perspective, we definitely want to keep those open lines of communication with any vendors that we're integrating. But any thoughts on involving vendors?
Yeah, and there's a couple different things just to think about in this case. There's two different types of business models that tend to go in this environment. One is that someone is selling you a platform and they're selling you access to it, they're selling you licenses, but they don't want to support the ongoing integration, the maintenance, and there are support partners for you to engage within that. That is one type, and it can be very effective. You have to be careful though, because if there's two different types of partners that you want to interact with. There's the very costly in and out type of consultants that want to come in and advise and tell you that, from their perspective, this is how everything should be configured, but by the nature of their work, they don't tend to have a very long engagement with organizations. Those, well, from a knowledge standpoint, can be very impactful. Those always worry me a little bit too, because I always look at any consulting arrangement for the long haul, that I look for someone that's a partner that is not coming in for just a limited advantage or viewpoint. I look for, if I'm engaging a third-party company, I want someone that I'm going to be engaging for the long term, because I know that our interests are aligned. On the flip end, when you're engaging with a partner, look at their support system. Do they, let's hope that everyone today has a support desk, but in my past experience, when I've upgraded an AMS or CRM, and we've got the different systems that we need to reconnect, how involved is that partner of yours? If it's a community platform and LMS, how involved are they in ensuring the success that your integration back into the new system is going to go flawlessly? That's a really critical thing. And I've dealt with LMSs that I can't get anyone on the phone, and it's a do-it-yourself environment versus dealing with subject matter experts that have multiple integrations. They've taken the time to build out these APIs. They understand it more from a cursory standpoint. They really understand how the data flows. Those are the types of of situations, partners, platforms that you want to be looking for.
Okay, well, let's move on to the pitfalls of integration, things to
Yeah.
look for.
So this is, yeah, and this is, I mean, this kind of just build on that. Really, in a broad scale, the biggest enemy in this particular case probably falls in two camps. One, not having the end in mind, not knowing really what you want before you start, which is really tied to I involve the right stakeholders in the process in the beginning to be able to have this open and clear communication by department of what they're looking to achieve. Because whether it's an events platform, events touches membership, it touches finance, whether it's an LMS that impacts, it impacts the events, it impacts finance. There is a cross section of line of accountability across any organization that is really critical to recognize. And if you don't recognize that, you're not going to have a clear scope. The configurations will not be developed correctly because you're the company implementing it won't be doing it on a full picture. You have the potential to bring bad data in. And just bad data means that if you had a bunch of users that had bad emails or couldn't didn't have the right continuing education data, it didn't have the right history of what they attended to be able to make good recommendations. All of that, it just leads to a really poor customer experience. And bad data in an old system brought over to bad data in a new system will automatically carry over your integration problems. So back to the preparation, back to understanding what the key outcomes are is really important. And then, not testing, not being fluid, in being able to say that if our integration is either we're hard coding something in, or we're not testing, or we're making it, and probably the point I'm making is if it's overly customized, it is going to end up with bad outcomes. Matt, you're on mute.
Oh, sorry about that. Yeah, I'm just looking to see if there's any other questions. We did have another question that said, what should you do if you do have a broken integration?
So if you have a broken integration, I'll start with what you shouldn't do. And that is, you should not be reactive to what the issue is itself. While you always have to serve customers' needs and you have to fix for the problem that is being dealt with at the moment, that is not a solution for a broken integration. If we think about going back, and I think this webinar will be available on demand, and if not, we can certainly talk about it. But if we go back to the broken integration, and what we do is you go back to the beginning. We think about, okay, what are the key outcomes that we want to achieve? And again, a simple word workflow where you say, here's the beginning of the customer journey from each department. And again, not something complicated. You could do it in PowerPoint or Google Slides, really easy to do. And really the idea is color the boxes in red that you continuously see issues. And then you ask yourself, why are we seeing these issues? And it could be as simple as, hey, we upgraded this platform and it didn't integrate and we didn't do the proper testing with this platform. So you have to address that. To misunderstanding, training. We've got John Doe in customer service that continuously logs this information incorrectly, and it's mudding up the system. The API just was never built correctly, and so no matter what you guys do, you're going to be in a manual environment and have to fix that. But the overall is you start to map out what are the key outcomes. how does that overlay into our current systems? And then, understanding what platforms could help you achieve that, and there's a number of ways that I'm sure Matt could help you with, but I could help you with understand too, just from my vantage point of how you might attack that problem.
Yeah, great. Well, I think this has been real informative. We talked about kind of the importance of a good integration and the costs if it's broken, right? We talked about how to prepare for it, and things to watch out for in advance. We talked about the actual steps of integration and what to look at post-integration and the pitfalls. So it was very comprehensive. Thank you, Robert. You're very, very knowledgeable on the subject, and we appreciate that. So we thank everyone for joining today. We encourage you to reach out to any of us after the call if you wish to consult on any broken integration or any future integrations you may be planning. You'll find our contact information below on this slide, and we'd love to hear from you. The webinar will also be posted on MapleLMS.com website for on-demand viewing and reference. We also have some upcoming webinars, and we'll continue this conversation on integration. We'd love to, if you'd like for us to discuss anything in particular on integrations, let us know your thoughts, and we can include that in our future webinars as well. On our website, we'll be posting all of our future webinars, so please visit us at MapleLMS.com. And thank you so much for joining us today. Thank you, Robert. Oh,
thank you. And just one additional note is I know MapleLMS will be at ASAE in Nashville in August. I will be there. If you want to continue the conversation or questions, or just want to meet face to face, I would love to see you there.
Absolutely. Looking forward to that.
All right. Thanks, everyone.
Thank you.
All right. Bye-bye.